Welcome to State of the Offense, your unbiased coverage of your favorite team's offense, the Raiders. At this point of the year where there are so many unknowns, I believe that Raiders fans should be concerned with the offense going into the season. Last year, the Raiders finished 11th in total offense, 12th in passing, 17th in rushing, and 12th in scoring, which earned them a 6-11 record. In the skill positions, the Raiders bring back their entire running back group plus Davante Adams and Hunter Renfrow. The Raiders decided to make over the entire quarterback and tight end rooms, plus they added 4 wide receivers. The entire quarterback depth chart has been overturned as veterans Jimmy Garoppolo and Brian Hoyer, who have both played under coach Josh McDaniels, replaced longtime Raiders starter Derek Carr and backup Jarrett Stidham. The tight end room lost Darren Waller and Foster Moreau and gained Austin Hooper, Michael Mayer, and O.J. Howard. Most fantasy football shows will only mention skill players, but state of the offense, we look at the whole offense. We start in the trenches by analyzing the condition of the offensive line. On the offensive line, the Raiders will bring back their entire starting 5 from last year, which is needed considering the change in the other positions. The Raiders group is fairly young with room to grow. Colton Miller is back for his 6th season with the Raiders as the starting left tackle. Miller was the best offensive lineman with an 87 grade, played in 16 games. His snap share was 93.6%. Miller was the number 8 left tackle in the game last year. He is signed through the 2025 season. Dylan Parham was a 2022 third-round draft pick by the Raiders. In his rookie year, Parham played in all 17 games, graded at a 71, and had a 93.7% snap share. Pretty good numbers for a young offensive lineman. His 71 grade placed him in the 19 to 20 range of starting left guards in football. Raiders fans should expect him to grow and improve in the immediate future as a solid starter. Andre James is back for his 5th season as a Raider at the center position. James graded at a 73 last year, played in 15 games, and had an 86.7% snap share. His 73 grade ranked him as the 18th best center in the game. James will be a free agent after the season. Alex Bars is back at right guard for the Raiders. He graded at a 67, which is a backup level grade. He played in 14 games, and he had an 80.4% snap share. Bars rated in the bottom 5 starting right guards in the league, and he's a free agent in the spring. Right tackle Jermaine Illuminor is back for his 3rd season as a Raider. He also spent 2 years under Josh McDaniels in New England earlier in his career. Illuminor played in all 17 games, and he had an 84.4% snap share. He graded at a 73, where he rated as the 19th best right tackle in the league. Illuminor's contract is up after the season too. The offensive line has some concerns going into the season. The future is uncertain because the Raiders may have to possibly replace 3 offensive linemen next season. Parham is the only recent draft pick who has shown any upside on the line. Unless there is significant improvement in this group, the Raiders have to infuse more talent into it. The Raiders signed Jimmy Garoppolo after Jimmy G had a 6-year run in San Francisco. No one is going to confuse Jimmy G with Andrew Luck or John Elway as a talent, but he's efficient and he doesn't lose games. The biggest issue for Garoppolo in his career has been his lack of durability. The current news out is that he had foot surgery in March and the Raiders put special injury clauses into his contract. Last year, Jimmy came in for Trey Lance in week 2, played in 11 games, pretty efficient, then he got hurt again. The 49ers rolled along with Brock Purdy, and here we are. In fantasy, Jimmy was the 23rd quarterback in points per game. He is currently going as the 27th quarterback drafted in fantasy. If you need a quarterback too late, going with the young guy who has less of an injury history, who can run, like a Trey Lance or a Desmond Ridder, may make more sense for you. The quarterback right above Garoppolo on the draft board is Jordan Love, and the one right behind him is Mac Jones. I like both of those guys more than I like Jimmy going into the season for fantasy. Brian Hoyer is a career backup who knows the offense. His potential as a fantasy fill-in depends on the team that the Raiders play. The Raiders have a good 3 wide receiver set going into the season. Davante Adams is a Hall of Fame caliber wide receiver who was fantastic in his first year in Vegas. Adams was the wide receiver 2 in fantasy points and wide receiver 3 in points per game. He is the wide receiver 5 on ESPN right now, which means he's going a 12-13 turn in fantasy drafts. Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill are ahead of him. Stephon Diggs and CeeDee Lamb are behind him. You can't go wrong with any of these 5 guys, but I would probably fade Adams because of the quarterback situation. Jimmy G is just too injury prone, and I don't believe in Brian Hoyer as his backup. Cooper Kupp still has Matthew Stafford. Tyreek has Tua. Diggs has Josh Allen. CeeDee Lamb has Dak Prescott. And A.J. Brown has Jalen Hurts. Adams will slide on my personal board behind that group. In free agency, the Raiders signed Jakobi Meyers away from New England. Surprise, surprise. Meyers was the 31st wide receiver in total points and average points. He's a nice fit as a wide receiver 2 for the Raiders. He is currently the 40th wide receiver drafted, the 103rd player overall, which makes him a 9th round pick. There are a few wide receivers that I like better than Meyers that are getting drafted after him, so I'm not really crazy about where Jakobi Meyers is getting drafted. Hunter Renfrow was very good in 2021, but he only played in 10 games, and with the addition of a dominant wide receiver like Davante Adams brought into the mix, he only averaged 33 yards a game. I do not expect his production to improve at all with Jakobi Meyers now ahead of him too. The Raiders have Austin Hooper at the top of the tight end depth chart. He's a complete tight end. He could block and catch. The Raiders signed him and fellow veteran tight end O.J. Howard to 1-year deals. Neither are the talent of a Darren Waller, but Hooper produced numbers in Tennessee similar to Foster Moreau. Neither he nor Howard are getting drafted in fantasy. Part of the reason for that is the Raiders used the 35th pick in the draft on Notre Dame tight end Michael Mayer, who was the most productive tight end in college football for the last few years. Mayer has a bright future ahead in the offense, but not necessarily in 2023. The presence of 2 veterans who are better blockers than him fits the running style of the Raiders with Josh Jacobs. Mayer is getting drafted as a flyer in the 15th round in fantasy, but his rookie situation is not as good as some of the other rookie tight ends. In dynasty drafts, Mayer is a low first round pick or a high second round pick, which is pretty solid. I would recommend Mayer as a waiver wire add if anything happens to Austin Hooper or O.J. Howard on the injury front. Running back Josh Jacobs had a career year and led the NFL in rushing last year. He had 340 carries, and he also had 64 targets as a receiver. He was the 3rd running back in total points, and he was 4th in average points per game. Big question is, can he do it again? The general public doesn't seem to think so right now. He is the running back 7 in his draft position. He's the 16th player taken in the 2nd round. I believe that he can be just as good as any of the 6 that get drafted ahead of him, and Nick Chubb is the only guy behind him that's in his range. If you have the number 9 pick in the 1st round, which gives you the 16th pick overall in the 2nd round, you can end up with an excellent duo no matter which way you go at 9. If I had the number 9 pick, I would gladly draft a guy like Patrick Mahomes in the 1st round and Josh Jacobs in the 2nd for my 1-2 punch. The Raiders have Brandon Bolden and Zamir White behind Jacobs, but they have no role in the offense. Combined, they had 34 carries. Jacobs had 340. Jacobs was also the top receiving back for the Raiders. You should draft Jacobs with all the confidence in the world this fall. The Raiders have 2 elite fantasy football options with wide receiver Davante Adams and running back Josh Jacobs. They do not have the same amount of talent surrounding them in 2023, so they may fall off. The offensive line is so-so, and if they are not productive, you will see a massive drop-off in yardage for the offense. Jimmy Garoppolo is also a very big injury risk. Overall, I am not valuing Raiders players as high as I have in the past. The potential breakout player on the roster is Michael Mayer. He's good enough to take Darren Waller's place, but it may take a little longer than you would like. The decision to move on from Derek Carr as the longtime starter at quarterback for the franchise should not come as a surprise. When Josh McDaniels first started coaching at Denver, he got rid of a Pro Bowl quarterback at the time with Jay Cutler, and then he went with a less accomplished player with Kyle Orton, and then he drafted Tim Tebow. With the Derek Carr situation, Carr's contract had a possible out this past spring. Say what you want about Derek Carr, but the guy passed for 4,800 yards, 68.4% completion rate, and made the playoffs under an interim head coach, and is a 4-time Pro Bowl quarterback. Quarterbacks often get the blame for not winning, but the only quarterback in NFL history who played for more head coaches was Archie Manning with New Orleans. 6 coaches, multiple front office changes. Derek Carr was not the problem. Josh McDaniels has brought in 3 quarterbacks that he coached from his New England days, now with Stidham, Garoppolo, and Hoyer. He He drafted Aiden O'Connell in the 4th round as a pet project. McDaniels has a 17-28 record as a head coach. He took over a 10-7 team that made the playoffs and only lost by a touchdown to the eventual AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals. Then in his first year as the Raiders coach, he goes 6-11 and runs Derek Carr off. Am I missing something here? The Raiders should have just kept Rich Bisaccia as the head coach instead of getting this guy who just rode Tom Brady and Bill Belichick's coattails to 2 NFL head coaching jobs. Josh McDaniels took over a Denver organization that had an established quarterback from the Mike Shanahan era in Denver and was fired 12 games into his second season. With the Davis tendency to fire coaches so regularly and Josh McDaniels' track record as a head coach, I think that it is a very reasonable question to ask. How long is this situation going to last in Las Vegas? If Garoppolo misses time, the Raiders will likely finish in last place in the AFC West. If he's healthy, they will be in the wild card conversation and be somewhat competitive. But overall, I don't really have much faith in this guy. I don't really have much faith with Jimmy Garoppolo staying healthy. So I'm expecting a relatively rough year for Raiders fans. If you like today's coverage of the Raiders offense, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.